Hello, and welcome to the new Mindscape. In this video, I'm going to talk about things and meanings. In the materialist operating system, with its instrumental rationality, beings in the world have no intrinsic value or meaning. So think of the chicks being sent to their death on the assembly line in the film Baraka. The chicks have no value or meaning in and of themselves. They're simply a material resource, whose value and meaning is ascribed to them by us humans who see them as food, and more specifically by the agricultural corporation, which sees them as profit and tries to maximize the efficiency of chicken production. Other than this instrumental goal, chickens have no value or meaning. If we think they have value as living beings, as being cute or beautiful, well, we're free to think so, but these are only our emotional sentiments. We can enjoy the chicks in our mindscape, but they themselves have no such intrinsic value or meaning. And the same could be said of humans too. They have instrumental value, which should be maximized through more efficient production and more abundant consumption. Anything else is mere subjective feeling. That's how our materialist operating system makes us think. Materialism and instrumental rationality are based on making a division between material existence, which is considered to be real, and our mindscape of thoughts, imagination, feelings, which are considered to be less real. Now, since the mindscape is a subjective world, is it less real than the objective world out there? Can something unreal be more powerful than objective reality? Actually, the world of meanings and significances, the world of intangible objects of consciousness which fills our mindscape, is just as real as the world out there. In our perception, our experience and action in the world, the two are united into one. Our perception of material objects is always immediately connected in our minds to intangible concepts, words, ideas, and meanings. At the same time, for intangible mental objects to have meaning, they always need to be linked to a memory or association with some tangible material reality. So let me give you an example. My own experience when I went on my first visit to China as an English teacher in an oil school in 1993. So that was in Sichuan, and at that time there were hardly any foreigners in that province of China. And because foreign faces were rare, wherever I went there would be crowds of people looking at me, pulling at the hair on my arms and calling me Lawai, 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 which means foreigner, foreigner. I attracted a lot of attention. And one day, the newspaper China Oil News, 中国石油报, decided to write an article about this foreign teacher in the oil college. And so a journalist came to interview me. We had a great time. We spent the entire evening having delicious Sichuan hot pot, 火锅. We had a great time chatting together. And I saw his face for 3 hours, and he saw my face for 3 hours. And the next day, I read the article on me in the newspaper. And this journalist described me as having yellow hair, blonde hair, a tall nose, and blue eyes. He described me as having blue eyes. I couldn't believe it. I mean, this person had spent the whole evening with me, but in his mind, all foreigners have blonde hair and blue eyes. So even though he'd looked at my brown eyes for 3 hours the next day, in his mind, my eyes were blue. In those days, I was shocked that somebody would call my hair blonde. I considered my hair to be reddish brown or auburn. I mean, it wasn't gray yet. And it's certainly never been called blonde or yellow in Western countries. Well, now I've been living in China for so long that it doesn't shock me anymore when somebody says that I have blonde hair. Actually, somebody told me that if somebody's hair is not dark brown or black, well, it's yellow. And 20 years ago in Sichuan province, if your eyes were not black or deep dark brown, well, they were blue. And never mind how you measure a tall nose. So anyway, the point is we have categories in our minds. We have ideas and concepts, objects of consciousness, as William James said. We have these concepts in our mind, in our mindscape, that literally color the way that we look at the world. So more than 20 years ago, in that place where I was living, there were basically two eye colors in people's minds. So the world was divided into two types of people, those with black eyes and those with blue eyes. And so that's what they saw. Now, to give another example, when I grew up in Canada, well, over there we have a lot of snow in winter. But I only know 4 words related to snow in English: snow, ice, slush, and sleet. But the Inuit, or Eskimo people who live in the Arctic, in the far north of Canada, have dozens of different words for different kinds of snow. And the Sami people in the Arctic regions of Scandinavia, in the far north of Norway and Sweden, have over 100 different words to designate different types and conditions of snow. So as soon as they see it, they can instantly name very detailed qualities and subtle differences in different types of snow. But for me, all I see is white snowflakes. So the way that we see things is literally an expression of the ideas in our own minds. We don't fully see the world that's outside of ourselves. Even something that seems as obvious as, let's say, black, is also a concept in our minds. Black. So look at the blackness of the screen here. Well, black is only a word. You cannot define blackness. Because when you see this black screen and you say that it's black, you're actually connecting that thing to a concept of black in your mind. You have a concept of black, which isn't exactly the same thing as this phone screen. The concept is in your mind. So your mind can connect different things together. It can connect this phone, your hair, the frame of your glasses. So it can connect all of these different things using the same concept of black. And by making these connections, your mind sees something in common between these different things. Even things that appear so obvious, like black, are actually concepts. They're objects of consciousness. They're ideas. They're something in our imagination. The meanings that we give to things, whether we perceive them as good or bad, are not inherent in the thing itself, but they come from our own consciousness. So you may say that something's useful. Obviously, useful is a judgment. You're judging whether the thing is useful or not. But even blackness is a judgment. You've judged this thing to be black. Even if we look very closely, the blackness of the phone screen and the blackness of your hair may not be the same. So even the most obvious things are actually ideas in our minds. They're objects of consciousness that we attach and connect to the things that we perceive from outside of us. So we perceive objects, but we attach qualities to them, such as names and colors, based on our pre-existing objects of consciousness. And these qualities are not only tangible qualities such as color, but they also include moral and abstract qualities, such as useful or useless, such as good or bad. So when William James, when he speaks of the power of abstract objects of consciousness, he wrote that the whole universe of concrete objects as we know them swims in a wider and higher universe of abstract ideas that lend those objects their significance. As time, space, and the ether soak through all things, so, we feel, do abstract and essential goodness, beauty, strength, significance, justice. All of these things soak through all things good, strong, significant, and just. Such ideas, and others equally abstract, form the background for all of our facts, the fountainhead of all the possibilities that we conceive of. They give its nature, as we call it, to every special thing. Everything that we know is what it is by sharing in the nature of one of these abstractions in our mind. We can never look directly at them because they're bodiless and featureless and footless, but we grasp all other things by their means. And in handling the real world, we should be stricken with helplessness in just so far forth as we might lose these mental objects, these adjectives and adverbs and predicates and heads of classification and conception.